when all your banks fail, when all your other cryptos get shut down, if it turns out that your cryptocurrency is regulated, if your crypto security is regulated, if your crypto network is regulated, Bitcoin is going to be the last network operating. And so people are starting to renew their interest in Bitcoin. A lot of capital is migrating into the Bitcoin network.
Michael Saylor is a prominent American entrepreneur and businessman who is the CEO of MicroStrategy, a publicly traded business intelligence firm. Despite Bitcoin's volatility and regulatory pressure, Michael Saylor, CEO of MicroStrategy, has emerged as one of the digital asset's most fervent supporters. Bitcoin's decentralized structure makes it more secure and resistant to fraud than traditional financial systems, which are subject to the whims of governments and banks. Bitcoin backed by the most powerful secure computer network in the world. If I gave you $100 billion, you can't reproduce it. And it's beyond a nation-state attack or corporate attack. So once you understand that and the fact that it's a singularity, there's nothing like it in the world, then yeah, this is an ideal entry point to get into this thing. Moreover, Bitcoin's design is rooted in scarcity with a cap of 21 million coins, creating an inbuilt resistance to inflation. As per Saylor, Bitcoin has been more volatile than gold, but it's a less-known commodity than a precious metal that has been sought after and valued for thousands of years. Bitcoin is a clear winner based on its digital, trustless, and frictionless properties. Bitcoin's Lightning Network is a Layer 2 scaling solution that makes Bitcoin transactions faster and cheaper, although there are security trade-offs.
And what Bitcoin represents is it represents the most powerful cyber network or the most powerful computer network in the world. If I gave you $100 billion and control of a nation state, and I gave you 4 years and said attack the Bitcoin network, you could try to buy up all the SHA-256 mining rigs in the world and then try to power them up. And if you succeeded after 4 years, you might be able to slow the network down, but you couldn't stop it, right? So it's very difficult to either stop the network, to undermine the network, and or to block a message. I think that over time, you'll see Bitcoin transaction on the base layer, they'll go from $3 to $10 to $30 to $300 to $3,000 to $30,000 to $300,000. There's no reason why you can't pay $300,000 to move $1 billion from point A to point B.
Saylor expresses his support for Bitcoin precisely because it is beyond anyone's control, including that of the Chinese government. Bitcoin provides a solution for those who wish to have full ownership and unrestricted use of their money without requiring permission from any authority. According to Saylor, Bitcoin offers individuals the best chance to truly own their money and have the freedom to spend it as they see fit. He roped in bank failures, hyperinflation, regulators calling the asset a commodity.
Most people misunderstand Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a commodity. So if you had a publicly traded company that owned a portfolio of $4 billion worth of buildings, or $4 billion worth of timberland, or $4 billion worth of natural gas rights, or $4 billion worth of oil fields, right? $4 billion worth of warehouses. That actually is a very legitimate mission and a very legitimate charter or strategy for a publicly traded company, because the average investor doesn't want to acquire warehouses or millions of acres of mineral rights, right? They can't do that. They want to buy the security. So we are a security, but we're backed by a commodity. So that's the first observation that is the reason why this is not the case. The second is there are hundreds of billions of dollars of capital that would like to invest in Bitcoin or invest in any commodity, and they don't have the right by charter to invest in the underlying commodity. So that they can't buy the Bitcoin either by charter, it's against their charter, it's against their investor mandate. The second reason is there are only a handful of exchanges where you might buy Bitcoin on that would be acceptable. It would take 6 months to a year to KYC, AML, and certify and vet those exchanges. So most of those hedge funds don't have the physical, technical ability to buy the Bitcoin, even if they wanted to hold it as the asset commodity. The third is if you notice, there's nowhere in the world where you can borrow against Bitcoin anymore. Silvergate was the last credible institution. So if you have $10 million of Bitcoin, it's very difficult to get a margin loan against it to pledge it as collateral. So if anything, Bitcoin's status as a commodity is much more certain today than it was 36 months ago. No, I don't expect that to change. The real key here, David, to being a commodity is for no one to control it and no one have the power to change it. So as long as Bitcoin is so decentralized that no one can change it, and as long as the people that hold it are adamantly against anybody else controlling it, then I think you cement its commodity status. And if there's any one crypto asset that has that conservative community view that it should not be changed, it's Bitcoin. So it is the most secure asset in the crypto universe with regard to its legal status.
Michael Saylor said Bitcoin Ordinals are a catalyst for adoption. Every time someone builds an application that's cool on Bitcoin, like all the ordinals and inscriptions and whatever that are driving up transaction fees, it's a catalyst, said Saylor on the PBD Podcast. There's no reason Bitcoin shouldn't expand to flip gold and then to replace negative yielding sovereign debt and then to replace money markets and savings accounts and cash accounts, he said. Bitcoin operates in a manner that any government cannot control, and those who own it get to use it without seeking permission from others. Saylor added that the future of the financial system was not in cash, gold, or silver coins, but in Bitcoin.
Well, Bitcoin's market cap is about 500 billion right now, and the value of these financial instruments that I've talked about, all the other currencies, the securities, the properties, et cetera, it's 500 trillion or more. So Bitcoin is not 1%, it's 0.1%. So Bitcoin can increase by a factor of 10, and it's going to be a 1%er, and it can increase by a factor of 100, and by that time there'll be a lot more of the other stuff. And so when Bitcoin goes up by a factor of 100, it'll probably be a 3-4% of the entire financial universe. The bad money that's get crowded out, David, to be clear, bonds, that's why they're crashing. Silver, that's why it's down 9% in 3 years. Gold, the reason that gold isn't returning any yield, why it's up 1% in 36 months of rampant hyperinflation around the world, is gold is now the glass money or the shell beads money or the stone coin money. It's just the gold bugs haven't quite got it through their head that it's antiquated, shiny rocks. All these things that are underperforming Bitcoin, they're the bad money. And
global loss of confidence in fiat boosting Bitcoin adoption, said Michael Saylor. There's the macroeconomic concern about inflation, and as inflation takes place, people lose confidence in fiat currencies. That means they start to realize that everything valued on cash flow is a currency derivative and Bitcoin is not valued on cash flows, he explained. As the possibility of a digital dollar becomes more tangible, Saylor anticipates that more people will realize the extent of government and private sector control over traditional cash, making it challenging for individuals to freely utilize their capital. According to Michael Saylor, Bitcoin is the only asset in the known universe that will last 100+ years while simultaneously being a store of value, full stop. According to Saylor, storing wealth and real estate is not an efficient way to store monetary energy.
There's no one more focused on cybersecurity than the Bitcoin community. So if anybody develops a new form of computing, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin community will be the first community to recognize it, and they will adopt it, and they will build it into the Bitcoin mining network. Everybody else will come later and slower. So everything in the ecosystem is less secure than Bitcoin. It's a benefit for Bitcoin to be different, right? Bitcoin looks like this volatile asset. And that's a benefit, because if Bitcoin looked exactly like the dollar, it would be competitive to the dollar. You don't want to compete with the dollar. We don't want to be exactly like the CNY, because we don't need to. Bitcoin does not need to topple Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Google to be successful. Bitcoin does not have to topple your commercial real estate portfolio or eat your house to be successful. And Bitcoin doesn't need for the collapse of all nation states to be successful. Bitcoin doesn't even need all the banks to fail to be successful. Bitcoin is simply going to be more successful as people either lose confidence in some of those things, or if you're a middle-class family and you've got $50,000 and you're trying to figure out, should we buy an apartment and Airbnb it, or should we buy some Bitcoin? When people realize it's hard to run an Airbnb business for the next 30 years, and they don't want to paint the apartment, or they don't want to deal with the water damage in the apartment, they're going to say, I guess Bitcoin looks like better property than an apartment that we're going to Airbnb. So as people realize that Bitcoin is just a better idea, it's going to demonetize those other assets in a gradual, progressive way.
Ultimately, the extent to which Saylor is committed to Bitcoin, despite potential risks and uncertainties, is a testament to his conviction in the digital asset. However, investors and the broader crypto community should be mindful of the potential biases and incentives at play when considering Saylor's stance on Bitcoin. On this note, we conclude our video. Do you agree with Michael Saylor's perspective about Bitcoin being a secure asset? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you found this information helpful, then like this video and subscribe to our channel. We will bring you more updates in the future.